any violence against women is wrong. And sadly, we're seeing an epidemic of violence against women in our country. It's happening in every part of the country, and we're seeing really heartbreaking stories of violence that could have been prevented. And what is so heartbreaking is how widespread it is. Recent reports said 44% of women report that they've experienced some form of partner abuse. And what also we've learned, which is really compelling, is that in 95% of cases that end up in partner violence, that there's coercive control that happens before the violence. And so we just met with some families that really tragically are living with the realities of this violence. They've lost their loved ones, they've lost their daughters to intimate partner violence. And there were many examples of coercive control, really abusive coercive control that led up to the violence. And in some of the cases, there was no actual physical violence until the horrific death, and it was coercive control all throughout. So for that reason, we as a party have been leading the charge on this. I really want to thank Laurel Collins for taking up the charge and presenting this private member's bill. Randall Garrison has presented this bill before, but it's a bill that directly goes after coercive control so we can ensure that women are protected and that this abusive behavior is identified and can be prosecuted. And so this is a really important step forward. There's so much more we need to do to ensure that we tackle violence against women and we end it. But this is one powerful tool that will help save lives, and I'm really proud of the work that Laurel and the team are doing to bring this bill forward. It'll be coming to a vote after question period today. I'll do that again in French, and then I'll invite Laurel to come up, and then Leah will speak afterwards. Donc, c'est clair, ça brise le cœur qu'il y a la violence contre les femmes qui continue à travers le pays. Et les chiffres sont absolument, ça brise le cœur de savoir comment c'est commun. 44% des femmes ont vécu des abus dans leur vie. 44%. Et on sait que dans 95% des cas, il y a de contrôle coercitif avant la violence. Donc, ça, c'est pourquoi le travail qu'on a fait comme parti, le travail de Randall Garrison et maintenant le travail de Laurel Collins est assez important parce que c'est un projet de loi. On va voter après la période d'éducation qui va protéger les femmes contre cette contrôle coercitif, qui va protéger les femmes et qui va sauver les vies. C'est essentiel et c'est vraiment important. Il y a plus de travail à faire, mais ce projet de loi va sauver des vies, va protéger les femmes et c'est quelque chose qu'on doit faire. Donc maintenant, je vais passer la parole à Laurel Collins qui a présenté ce projet de loi. Laurel?
Thank you. Every 6 days, a woman is killed from intimate partner violence in Canada. Every 6 days, we lose someone to this. You know, that is an unacceptable statistic, but it's more than a statistic. These are loved ones, family members. I've spent the past year talking to women who are victims and survivors of intimate partner violence, of coercive control. I've spoken to families who have lost their loved ones. And we need a government that's going to take action. It's been over 2 years since the Justice Committee called on this government to criminalize coercive control and also take more steps to make our justice system trauma-informed, to address the systemic issues that would support victims and survivors of intimate partner violence. I want to share just a few of the words from some of the stories I've heard over the past year. A woman described coercive control as a web that slowly tightened around her until she felt like it was impossible to get free. And we heard from Dan. Dan lost his daughter, Caitlin, and he said that if this law had been in place, that Caitlin would still be here with us today. You know, it is beyond time that this government takes action to address gender-based violence and intimate partner violence. We're going to be voting on my bill on coercive control today, and then it will head to the Senate. And I hope that it pushes this government to do better for women, to do better for survivors and victims of intimate partner violence. We have so much more work to do. Thank you. And now over to Leah Gazan.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Leader. I want to start out by commending the work of my colleague, MP Laurel Collins, MP Randall Garrison under the leadership of the NDP and Jagmeet Singh for their work on advancing movement on the issue of gender-based violence, because we have a crisis of gender-based violence in this country. Many municipalities are now calling it an epidemic. We know that rates of gender-based violence are not decreasing. They've actually increased since the pandemic. Coercive control, identifying that behavior as a form of abuse, an invisible abuse that one cannot see with the eyes, but causes, in many cases, permanent damage to one's life, and sometimes results in death, and is most often the precursor for femicide in this country. We need the government to act beyond words. We need real investment to tackle the growing epidemic of gender-based violence in this country. This federal government has failed. They continue to fail women and gender-diverse people and families. And as one of the family members said today, and I have said in the House, car theft is a critical issue in this country, but they invest more in protecting cars in this country, this government, than they have protecting women and children that are experiencing violence. So I commend Laurel and MP Collins and MP Garrison. I commend the families for pushing this forward, and I encourage all MPs to do whatever they can to use their power to end this crisis once and for all.
Thanks so much, Leah. And we're ready for any questions you might have.
Juste sur ce projet de loi, on en est où? Est-ce que ça s'en va au Sénat? Et après, est-ce que vous pensez que ça peut être adopté avant la fin de la session?
C'est notre espoir que ce projet de loi sera adapté avant la fin de session. On veut avoir cette protection aussitôt que possible, parce que c'est une protection, comme Laurel vient de dire, comme Leah vient de dire, c'est une protection qui peut sauver des vies.
On the NSICOP report, we understand that you're to read it later today, is it? What did you make of Elizabeth May's assessment? And is that coloring at all how you're going in to take a read of it?
No, it's not going to color the way I go into it. In fact, what's going to color the way I look at this report is the way I've been looking at foreign interference in general, is through the eyes of diasporic communities who, for them, this is very serious. This is incredibly serious, and it has to be treated with that manner. The number of people I've spoken to, just anecdotally, who are diasporic from either India, China, or Iran, for example, this is a thing, foreign interference is something they live with and they fear on a regular basis. They are threatened, they are harassed, their family members are threatened and harassed, and so this is has a huge impact. This is very real in the lives of Canadians. So I will look at the report through the eyes of the people that I've spoken to, the people that I represent, Canadians who want to live in Canada with freedom to raise concerns and to voice their expression, and should not face any form of threat or harassment from foreign governments in the work that they do here. And I'll look at it through the lens of protecting our democracy to ensure that there is no erosion of public trust in our democracy, that we protect our institutions from foreign interference so people can have confidence when they vote, that vote's going to matter. I'm also going to read this report through the lens of responsibility as a leader of a political party. And what raises a serious concern for me is that we've got Pierre Poilievre, leader of the Conservative Party. The allegations are that there's potentially MPs that were influenced or that knowingly work with foreign governments, and that the Conservative Party race for leadership had foreign interference. Now, if any suggestion arose that my leadership race was interfered with in that manner, I would want to know. It is outrageous to me and deeply irresponsible that Pierre Poilievre has no desire to read the report, to learn about what happened concerning the way he was selected as leader. That is deeply problematic and should raise a lot of questions.
Elizabeth May,
I want to follow up and then I'll go.
Yeah, you could use your parliamentary privilege to stand in that place and disclose everything that you read tomorrow. Will you? Or later today, rather. Will you?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I will not do anything that jeopardizes national security. That would undermine the whole point of having the work being done. And so I don't want to in any way jeopardize national security. And so I'll be very clear on that. I will follow the rules regarding what is in the best interest of Canada as a country. I think what's missing in all this is that leaders aren't putting Canada first. We're seeing Pierre Poilievre put his own interests first, because it might be embarrassing for him to learn that a foreign government was involved in the selection of him as leader. But his embarrassment should not trump the interests of the country. That should be the most important thing. What is in the best interest of our country, of our democracy? That's going to be the way I look at the report and the way I will share information. I'll be very strong and firm on making sure this government takes every step possible to protect Canadians, but I'll also make sure that we're protecting national security interests so that we are not jeopardizing the men and women that serve, the work that's being done, and in any way that undermines the protection of our country.
En français, rapidement, vous avez vu Elisabeth May qui a dit qu'il n'y a pas de député qui siège actuellement à la Chambre des communes qui aurait trahi le Canada. Le gouvernement ne veut même pas confirmer cette information-là. Aidez-nous à comprendre, M. Singh, et quel pourrait être votre rôle demain lorsque vous allez avoir toutes les informations en main?
Donc, je vais lire les documents et je vais avoir une conférence de presse et je vais partager tout ce que je peux demain, après avoir lu les documents. Mais pour moi, ce que je veux souligner, c'est l'importance de ne pas accepter l'ingérence étrangère comme normale et de ne pas ignorer la vraie réalité des gens qui habitent ici au Canada, qui font face d'ingérence dans leur vie, qui sont menacés par les gouvernements étrangers, qui ont peur pour leur famille s'ils posent des questions ou critiquent les gouvernements. Ça, c'est le lentille que je vais utiliser quand je regarde les documents et quand je vais partager ce que j'ai appris, ce que je peux partager demain.
Selon ce que vous savez, est-ce que vous pensez que Mme May est allée peut-être un peu trop loin dans ses déclarations? Est-ce que la cote de sécurité vous permet d'en dire autant?
Parce que je n'ai pas lu les documents, donc je ne peux pas prononcer sur cette question, mais je peux dire que j'ai des inquiétudes que ce que Mme May a présenté réduire l'importance de l'ingérence étrangère et l'impact sur les gens, le vrai impact sur les communautés qui habitent ici au Canada, qui ont quitté des pays avec des gouvernements qui ont opprimé la population et qui veulent critiquer ces actions, et le fait qu'il y a plusieurs personnes qui vivent au Canada avec les menaces et peur de ce que les gouvernements étrangers font ici au Canada et comment ils ingèrent ici. Donc c'est un impact réel dans la vie des gens et je veux garder cette réalité toujours.
Est-ce que vous, entre les deux discours qu'on a entendus, les libéraux qui sont sortis, qui n'ont pas été capables tant que ça de démontrer qu'il n'y avait pas matière à s'inquiéter, alors qu'Elisabeth May est sortie en disant « Moi, je ne suis pas inquiète ». Comment vous expliquez ce décalage-là? Est-ce qu'il n'y aurait pas eu une responsabilité de la part des libéraux de sortir puis de calmer un peu ce climat de méfiance-là qu'on a vu dans la dernière semaine?
Oh, bien sûr, je critique énormément la réponse du gouvernement libéral de Justin Trudeau. J'ai posé cette question dans la période de questions. Comment ça se passe qu'il y a maintenant presque 12 semaines que le Premier ministre savait les détails de ce rapport et il n'a rien fait? Il n'a pas donné des garanties que oui, on va régler ces choses où il y a des inquiétudes, mais on a mis en œuvre des mesures pour régler ça. Il n'a pas donné une réponse adéquate à la population. Donc, ça, c'est une faillite de part du gouvernement libéral et de Justin Trudeau. En même temps, je critique le chef du Parti conservateur, Pierre Poilievre, qui ne veut pas savoir les détails dans ce rapport important. Et donc, ça, c'est pourquoi j'ai dit que je vais lire les documents et je vais présenter mes opinions et demander des prochaines étapes.
The idea was raised in the Senate today to ask Justice O to name the MPs that she believes may have been involved in any wrongdoing. What do you make of that idea? Should it be up to the justice to decide who should be named?
In terms of that approach, I feel like, given the fact that this is a judge who understands the weight of evidence, that giving a judge the ability to make that, have the discretion to make that decision, there is some merit to that suggestion. What I've said as a solution is that every leader should read the details of the document, and then if any MPs are implicated that are in their party, they should be removed from the caucus and not allowed to run again. If there's any suggestion that there's any MPs in any caucus right now, and there's information that suggests that they've been working for another government, then why would a leader allow that person to continue? I have full confidence in my caucus, and if any information comes to light, I make a commitment that I will make that step right away. But I don't see why, one, Pierre Poilievre refuses to see the documents, and Justin Trudeau has done nothing with the information. So that's the approach I've taken, and I think that's something that's a responsible approach. But the idea of having a judge who's right now overseeing a public inquiry, assess the evidence, or assess the information, and make a determination is something that we've effectively supported with the block motion being something similar.
Monsieur Singh, juste une question. Je pense que les gens sont intéressés pour savoir comment on obtient une cote de sécurité. Est-ce que c'est compliqué? Est-ce qu'on appelle les gens de votre famille? On regarde votre compte Facebook, Instagram? Est-ce que c'est compliqué d'avoir une cote de sécurité élevée pour consulter les documents secrets?
Non, ce n'est pas compliqué. Il y a des mesures qu'on doit prendre, il y a des informations qu'on doit partager. C'est un processus rigoureux et important, mais ce n'est pas compliqué. Il n'y a pas une excuse pour Pierre Poilievre de dire oh, c'est trop compliqué de faire. Ce n'est pas trop compliqué, c'est un processus important et Pierre Poilievre peut le faire. Et il n'y a aucune raison pour laquelle il n'a pas participé dans ce processus pour savoir les détails qui directement impliquent sa course à la chefferie pour les conservateurs, pour lui-même, et peut-être potentiellement s'implique ses députés. Le fait qu'il n'utilise pas cette opportunité de savoir plus, pour moi, présente le fait qu'il n'est pas quelqu'un qui peut devenir leader de ce pays parce qu'il n'a pas la responsabilité, il n'a pas pris la responsabilité de savoir les détails de quelque chose qui est vraiment concernant. Merci beaucoup. Thank you. Merci.